friends, let us laugh. So what do you get when you drop a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor. A flat key minor, yeah. What does Geronimo say when he jumps off a cliff? Me! Humor is a gift, one that clearly I don't have. But I'm not the first to use comedy to try and connect with my audience. 2019 Nielsen report suggests that among North American adults, 61% confess to watching comedy on TV on a regular basis, which is a full 10 percentage points higher than the runner-up, drama. Comedy is a big business too. The comedians Kevin Hart, Jerry Seinfeld, and Jim Gaffigan raked in, respectively, $59 million, $41 million, and $30 million each in 2019. But even greater stars than our own American celebrities have utilized the effectiveness of humor. Frederick Buechner points out that Jesus' own parables were, quote, antic, comic, often more than just a little shocking, devious, and unpredictable. In our story today, God is hilarious. And it's through these holy antics that we can find a real way to cope with this one wild life of ours. Our covenant story is about Abraham and Sarah. Abraham had clung to his father Terah's land until he gets a new commission from God in Genesis chapter 12 to a new land called Canaan. Abraham's to be the primogenitor par exemplar, the root of a great tree. Father Abraham is to have many sons, and many sons will have Father Abraham. Now, while ages in Genesis are approximate at best, this Genesis account declares that Abraham receives this new call to uproot himself and start a new life at the age of 75. So taking up this humorous call, maneuvering through a few mishaps where Abraham almost accidentally gives his wife away to a strongman, almost accidentally gives his wife away to a pharaoh, a chauvinistic comedy of errors, if ever there was one. And Abram gets renamed by God from Abram or Abram, which means exalted ancestor, to Avraham or Abraham, which means ancestor of a multitude. And God makes clear that this covenant with him is one where he will be blessed with a land that will be home to a multitude of peoples, multitude of nations, a lineage beyond compare. God promises to bless Abraham in order that he may be a blessing to all those nations around him, so that he, a sojourner, may have a home that provides safe haven for generations to come. All right, you imagine Abraham finally thinking, this was worth it. I mean, it was kind of a joke that at age 75, God had me traipsing across the Middle East, losing valuable real estate to my upshot nephew Lot, getting very humiliated in front of Pharaoh. But now we're ready to build my reputation back, to give me the kind of street cred that I deserve so I can participate in some serious drama in the biblical narrative. Sort of like Robin Williams transitioning from Mork and Mindy to the Dead Poets Society or Good Will Hunting. But God is not through with this stand-up routine. Oh, one more thing, God says to 100-year-old Abraham. You know your wife Sarah, who's 90? Yeah, she's going to have a baby that will give rise to nations. Okay, bye. In our story, Abraham falls on his face and laughs. We have no record of the nonsensical dialogue where Abraham would try to explain to Sarah the news that he received from God. But in the very next chapter of Genesis, there's these three strangers who come along and force the exchange, like a laughter cue card held up in the audience of a sitcom. Abraham and Sarah are feeding these three strangers like kings. And while they're sitting there, one of the strangers says, oh, by the way, Sarah's going to have a baby next year. There's, of course, the comedic twist that this stranger, maybe an angel, seems to know something impossible, that is, seemingly, the word of the Lord. And scripture says that 90-year-old Sarah was listening from behind a tent, and she chortles. She loses it. Frederick Buechner tells the story the best. Buechner says, she hunches her shoulders around her ears and starts to shake. Her laughter is all teeth and wheeze and tears running down as she rocks back and forth in her kitchen chair. She is laughing because she is pushing 91 hard, and she has just been told that she's going to have a baby. She can't control herself, and her husband can't control himself either. He keeps a straight face for a few seconds longer than she does, but he ends by cracking up too. They are laughing at the idea of a baby's being born in the geriatric ward, and Medicare's picking up the tab. They're laughing because the angel not only seems to believe it, but seems to expect them to believe it too. They're laughing because, with part of themselves, they do believe it. They're laughing because, with another part of themselves, they know it would take a fool to believe it. They're laughing because laughing is better than crying, and maybe not even all that different. They are laughing because if by some crazy chance it should just happen to come true, then they would really have something to laugh about. They are laughing at God and with God. And they are laughing at themselves too, because laughter has that in common with weeping. They're laughing at themselves too, because laughter has that in common with weeping. You see, comedy has this uneasy relationship with drama. They rely on each other, but often in ways that aren't immediately obvious in the moment. Take, for example, Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is the star of the hit Comedy Central news mockery show called The Daily Show. Noah is number 4 in that list I told you earlier of top grossing comedians in the country. He raked in $28 million in 2019. But what's less well known about Noah is his tragic childhood in apartheid South Africa. In his book, Born a Crime, Noah describes a time where he and his black mother, he was mixed race, his father was white, and it was a constant battle to keep themselves safe. But he and his black mother almost got killed by a deranged bus driver that had taken them hostage. The 3 of them escaped by jumping out of this minibus, hitting the asphalt hard, outrunning the driver. The 3 of them safely get to a gas station. They're bloody and they're battered, and they're awaiting police to drive them home. And 9-year-old Trevor Noah starts chastising his mother for her questionable theology. She had said, "Well, at least we're safe, thank God." Noah says, "But I was 9 years old and I knew better. I wasn't going to keep quiet this time." "No, Mom, this was not thanks to God. You should have listened to God when he told us to stay at home when the car wouldn't start, because clearly the devil tricked us into coming out tonight." "No, Trevor, that's not how the devil works. This is part of God's plan, and if God wanted us here, then God had a reason." And on, there we were, back at it, arguing about God's will. Finally, I said, "Look, Mom, I know you love Jesus, but maybe next week you could ask him to meet us at our house, because this really wasn't a fun night." She broke out in a huge smile and started laughing. I started laughing too, and we stood there, this little boy and his mom, our arms and legs covered in blood and dirt, laughing together through the pain and the light of a petrol station on the side of the road in the middle of the night. You see, Noah's pain was born from the racism of apartheid, and from it has come arguably one of the best living comedians of our time. Because comedy is how God helps us handle the tensions and the turmoil of the world around us. This became scientific knowledge back in 1962 when a boarding school in Tanzania became the epicenter of a pandemic, but of a different sort, a laughing pandemic. 95 students at this boarding school came down with amunipo, and the laughing, which of course was naturally hard to teach through, made administrators sent all the children home, which means the pandemic then spread to villages across this corner of Tanzania to almost 1,000 people. It lasted for months, people cackling and guffawing until their sides split, could not stop laughing. It was clear that nothing was truly funny about what was going on, and it was only after a similar breakout of amunipo that researchers found some correlations. These laughing pandemics tended to begin in places with serious overcrowding and poor food quality. In other words, laughing was resistance to a system of oppression when their bodies and their souls had no other option. Sarah was barren. She'd even given her husband a slave girl to procreate with in an attempt to cover over her own feeling of inadequacy. But then Sarah is told she's going to have a baby. And she laughs a lot. And then God confronts her about it. You laughed? Oh, no, I didn't, Sarah says. No, but you did, God says, which is probably the funniest part of the story. But then God tells them to name the baby Isaac, which means laughter. Buechner points out that God not only tolerated their laughter, but blessed it, and in a sense, joined in it with them, which makes a very special laughter indeed. Now, perhaps the good news of the gospel for many of us today is that God does not laugh at us. God laughs with us at the absurdity of it all. Helps us to laugh at ourselves, especially those of us in DC who take ourselves and our power too seriously. God laughs with us as we joke achingly about the pain of parenting during a pandemic. God blesses our holy humor as we try to make out what is that other person saying through the double masks. God sees our pain and says, I see that. And yet I smile, and how well that you are coping using your gifts, your laughter, your determination, your humor. Into a world that at this moment is stuck in the drama of navel gazing and wishing that that pre-pandemic life could just snap back into place, God says, I have a ridiculous promise for you, a covenant, if you will. Are you ready for this? It's preposterous. You're going to laugh, but I am making all things new. Nothing is going to be as it was. It's like I'm turning it all upside down. And in this topsy-turvy, upside-down circus of a world, I am bringing love and justice for all my children, flipping scripts of power, flipping tables so that you are able to rewrite the racist fables and narratives of our world, so that you can enable flourishing for those struck by tragedy. You are a chosen saint, a disciple, a joker in training. And here at the circus that we call church, we will flub and we will trip over ourselves many more times than we wish. But if you stick with it, you will get the tools you need to fill the hungry with good things, to send the rich away empty, to bring the powerful down from their thrones, to lift up the lowly. Yes, the order of things will be found standing on its head, and the oppressed will have a mighty chortle indeed. When Mary finishes her Magnificat song in Luke 1, after she's found out that she is going to be the mother of the Messiah, she proclaims that all that world turning and justice bringing is a direct thread pulled through time that fulfills the covenant that God made to Abraham and Sarah. So may we too be descendants of that covenant as we pull that string through to our hearts and to our world. That string is going to get tangled. It's going to get wrapped all up in our hands and our hearts. It's going to get messy, and the world will laugh as we look like clowns and fall and get caught in the web of love. But in the end, the love and mercy of God will be felt by all creation, where no more sad tears will be shed, but God will be our all in all. And that, my friends, is something to smile about. Thanks be to God, and amen.